India is the home of many great spiritual masters who have brought wisdom and truth to earth, inspiring us to seek a higher purpose in life, thus uplifting humanity to a divine state of being. One such great figure is the spiritual master, yogi, philosopher, poet, and politician, Sri Aurobindo, who graced our planet from 1872 to 1950. Sri Aurobindo's time as a politician was dedicated to achieving India's independence. However, after inner reflection, Sri Aurobindo retired from politics and service to his country. His aspirations turned instead toward the liberation of all humanity. Sri Aurobindo traveled to Pondicherry on the southeastern coast of India, where he retreated into the practice of silent yoga. Through the inner knowledge revealed to him during his spiritual practice, Sri Aurobindo began publishing writings full of wisdom. Today we present to you Chapter 1 of Book 1, Omnipresent Reality and the Universe, in the Life Divine. Originally written by Sri Aurobindo between 1914 and 1919, the Life Divine describes the spiritual journey that unfolds as a person sincerely seeks the highest truth. Such a journey leads to the soul's awakening and the direct experience of divinity. Chapter 4, Reality Omnipresent. And when we say that out of non-being, being appeared, we perceive that we are speaking in terms of time, about that which is beyond time. For what was that portentous state in the history of eternal nothing, on which being was born out of it? Or when will come that other date, equally formidable, on which an unreal all will relapse into the perpetual void? Sat, real, and Asat, unreal, if they have both to be affirmed, must be conceived as if they obtained simultaneously. They permit each other even though they refuse to mingle. Both, since we must speak in terms of time, are eternal. And who shall persuade eternal being that it does not really exist, and only eternal non-being is? In such a negation of all experience, how shall we find the solution that explains all experience? Pure being is the affirmation by the unknowable of itself as the free base of all cosmic existence. We give the name of non-being to a contrary affirmation of its freedom from all cosmic existence. Freedom, that is to say, from all positive terms of actual existence which consciousness in the universe can formulate to itself, even from the most abstract, even from the most transcendent. It does not deny them as a real expression of itself, but it denies its limitation by all expression or any expression whatsoever. The non-being permits the being, even as the silence permits the activity. By this simultaneous negation and affirmation, not mutually destructive, but complementary to each other like all contraries, the simultaneous awareness of conscious self-being as a reality and the unknowable beyond as the same reality becomes realizable to the awakened human soul. Thus was it possible for the Buddha to attain the state of nirvana and yet act puissantly in the world. Impersonal in his inner consciousness, in his action, the most powerful personality that we know of, as having lived and produced results upon the earth. When we ponder on these things, we begin to perceive how feeble in their self-assertive violence and how confusing in their misleading distinctness are the words that we use. We begin also to perceive that the limitations we impose on the Brahman arise from a narrowness of experience in the individual mind, which concentrates on one aspect of the unknowable and proceeds forthwith to deny or disparage all the rest. We tend always to translate too rigidly what we can conceive or know of the Absolute into the terms of our particular relativity. We affirm the one and identical by passionately discriminating and asserting the egoism of our own opinions and partial experiences against the opinions and partial experiences of others. It is wiser to wait, to learn, to grow, and, since we are obliged for the sake of our self-perfection to speak of these things, which no human speech can express, to search for the widest, the most flexible, the most Catholic affirmation possible, and found on it the largest and most comprehensive harmony. We recognize then that it is possible for the consciousness in the individual to enter into a state in which relative existence appears to be dissolved, and even self seems to be an inadequate conception. It is possible to pass into a silence beyond the silence, but this is not the whole of our ultimate experience, nor the single and all-excluding truth. For we find that this nirvana, this self-extinction, while it gives an absolute peace and freedom to the soul within, is yet consistent in practice with a desireless but effective action without. This possibility of an entire motionless impersonality and void calm within, doing outwardly the works of the eternal verities, love, truth, and righteousness, was perhaps the real gist of the Buddha's teaching. This superiority to ego and the chain of personal workings and the identification with mutable form and idea, not the petty ideal of an escape from the trouble and suffering of the physical birth. In any case, as the perfect man would combine in himself the silence and the activity, so also would the completely conscious soul reach back to the absolute freedom of the non-being, without therefore losing its hold on existence and the universe. It would thus reproduce in itself perpetually the eternal miracle of the divine existence in the universe, yet always beyond it and even, as it were, beyond itself. The opposite experience could only be a concentration of mentality in the individual upon non-existence, with the result of oblivion and personal withdrawal from a cosmic activity, still and always proceeding in the consciousness of the eternal being. Thus, after reconciling spirit and matter in the cosmic consciousness, we perceive the reconciliation in the transcendental consciousness of the final assertion of all and its negation. We discover that all affirmations are assertions of status or activity in the unknowable. All the corresponding negations are assertions of its freedom both from and in that status or activity. The unknowable is something to us, supreme, wonderful, and ineffable, which continually formulates itself to our consciousness and continually escapes from the formulation it has made. This it does not, as some malicious spirit or freakish magician, leading us from falsehood to greater falsehood, and so to a final negation of all things, but as even here, the wise beyond our wisdom, guiding us from reality to ever profound and vaster reality, until we find the most profound and vastest of which we are capable. An omnipresent reality is the Brahman, not an omnipresent cause of persistent illusions. If we thus accept a positive basis for our harmony, and on what other can harmony be founded? The various conceptual formulations of the unknowable, each of them representing a truth beyond conception, must be understood as far as possible in their relation to each other and their effect upon life, not separately, not exclusively, not so affirmed as to destroy or unduly diminish all other affirmations. The real monism, the true Advaita, is that which admits all things as the one Brahman, and does not seek to bisect its existence into two incompatible entities, an eternal truth and an eternal falsehood, Brahman and not Brahman, self and not self, a real self and an unreal, yet perpetual Maya. If it be true that the self alone exists, it must be also true that all is the self. And if this self, God, or Brahman is no helpless state, no bounded power, no limited personality, but the self-conscient all, there must be some good and inherent reason in it for the manifestation to discover, which we must proceed on the hypothesis of some potency, some wisdom, some truth of being in all that is manifested. The discord and apparent evil of the world must in their sphere be admitted, but not accepted as our conquerors. The deepest instinct of humanity seeks always and seeks wisely wisdom as the last word of the universal manifestation, not an eternal mockery and illusion, a secret and finally triumphant good, not an all-creative and invincible evil, an ultimate victory and fulfillment, not the disappointed recoil of the soul from its great adventure. For more information, please visit sriaurobindoashram.org.
It takes nothing away from a human to be kind to an animal. Joaquin Phoenix, vegan.
Delightful viewers, thank you for joining us today for Words of Wisdom.